In this video, we are going to be answering another fundamental question of calculus. What is a derivative? We're going to look at this from a conceptual point of view so you really understand it. And derivatives are incredibly important in calculus. You'll be doing derivatives for probably for months. So it's really important that you take a minute and you understand what a derivative is. So let's dive right in. The derivative of a function is the slope of the tangent line to a function. And now, if you've forgotten since pre-cal, a tangent line is a line that just barely touches a function at one point. And now I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking that the slope of the tangent line to a function seems like a kind of random and arbitrary thing to care about, right? Like who cares? And that's a fair question at this point. But I promise, as you start doing derivatives more and more, you will start to see that they actually have an immense number of applications. Let's look at a quick example just to kind of illustrate this. We see that we have a parabola graphed in red and a line graphed in blue. And this line barely goes by and just grazes the function at x equals 2. So we know that this is the tangent line to the function at x equals 2. And now you can have, every single x value has a tangent line, right? But this is the one at x equals 2. And so the slope of this line, right, this is just a basic line. So the slope of that line would be the derivative of the function at x equals 2. And now let's look at what happens if we add another line in. If we look at the green line now, we can see that it just barely grazes that red function at x equals negative 3. So this is the tangent line to the function at x equals negative 3. And now if we compare the green and the blue lines, we can see that the slopes of these lines are quite different, right? The green line has a negative slope because it goes from top left to bottom right, and the blue line has a positive slope because it goes from bottom left to top right. And so this shows us that the derivative of a function really depends on the x value that we're looking at, right? Because we have x equals 2, we have a positive derivative, and if we look at x equals negative 3, that's a pretty steep negative derivative, right? Because we just have to look at the slope of the tangent lines. And so a big part of finding the derivatives is getting a formula for the derivative of a function that works for every x. And let me show you what that looks like. So normally we have our function f of x, and we can write the derivative of that function, so a formula for the derivative at every x, in a couple of different ways. You can write f prime of x, y prime, or this last one called dy dx. These all mean the same thing, really. I don't know why in math we have so many different names for the same thing, but just know that these three things, you can basically use them interchangeably, and they kind of mean the same thing. But remember, each one of these just represents a formula that you can plug an x value into that gives you the slope of the tangent line at that x value, just like we were looking at a minute ago. So just to really hammer this point home, we know that f of 2 is the value of a function at x equals 2, or the y value. And f prime of 2, or the derivative of 2 at x equals 2, and that's how you read that, f prime of 2, is the slope of the tangent line that barely touches f of x at x equals 2. So again, normally you have f of x, and you plug in an x, and you get a y value, right? F of x is just a formula where you plug in an x and get a y value. F prime of x, or the derivative of f of x, is a formula where you plug in an x and you get the slope of the tangent line at x. So that is all I got for what a derivative is. Again, I know it's a little confusing, a little weird right now, like why am I finding the slope of the tangent line? I know it kind of seems strange, and that's perfectly normal right now. That's okay. Just know that as we get more and more complicated with derivatives, all we're doing is we're finding the slope of the tangent line to a function at a given x. And we're going to really start diving into how to calculate derivatives in the next video. But If you enjoyed this video or if you learned something, please like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I will keep the math content coming.